Today I present for your edification and viewing pleasure the Cleanmaster. Those loyal viewers of this channel may note that this is not the first big, beautiful, and boxy central vac that I've reviewed. Of course, the last one being the All-Vac from New York, a regional brand. And so I guess we could start making this a series. Yeah, today on BoxVac. This machine came to me from my good friend Evan in Pittsburgh, and it is, I would say, an early 1960s central vac. Has a bag, has your beam type inlets with two buttons. And whenever you see two buttons on the inlets, that means that this uses a special kind of latching relay known as a dual coil relay. And so you have three wires going to the inlets, a common, an on pulse wire, and an off pulse wire. And when you press one button, it turns the system on. And then you have to press the other button to turn it off. And that's in comparison to a single coil latching relay like the Filtex early and Central Vac International machines used to use, and the early Kenmores, and I forget which other ones. But as I mentioned, Evan in Pittsburgh traded this in, and the company that installed this originally, Pioneer Manufacturing, was a prolific Vacuum-Aid dealer. But before Vacuum-Aid, they got their start installing these things, usually retrofitted into, in Chicago we'd call them bungalows, but simple one-story houses. Oftentimes the inlets were a couple inlets in the floor on the first floor, and you can see this one would have been installed with a floor adapter just into a fitting. And sometimes one in the ceiling of the basement. Other times, this unit was installed so close to the middle of the basement that you could vacuum the whole basement from the inlet on the front of the machine. And it's interesting to me that the inlet is the same without the button holes, the holes drilled for the push buttons, and instead they put the buttons in the cabinet of the machine. So if we look inside, this has a two-layer sheet metal lid. The inner layer floats to give positive contact with the gasket, which is here. And then you can see our intakes are this one from the piping, this one from the utility inlet, and we have a, somebody used a bit of denim from their jeans to patch this bag. So I guess this would have, I don't know, I imagine a lot of these were used just by dumping the cloth bag out, but it could have been used with an elastic top disposable bag like an MD where you wrap the elastic around the rim of this. Down below the bag we have, this is kind of a nice, ooh, that's dirty. This is kind of a nice touch actually. This is here for, I don't think it's doing much filtering, but it's allowing the air to flow through the sides of the cloth bag instead of straight down through the bottom. And another nice little engineering touch is the fact that there is a baffle so that there's no way for just the bottom of the bag to go down a little too far and block off the motor intake. So the baffle, it's actually rather like the Vacuum-Aid bagged units, but of course they use a closed bag. So yeah, this was their own, you know, at this time everybody was kind of just building their unit from scratch and not doing a whole lot of copying, but this was their take on it, and obviously this was not wall mounted, it just sat on the floor. And I don't super mind that. Like, it lets you have a little more installation flexibility. You can just set the thing like in the middle of the basement. If it's an unfinished basement, nobody really cares where things are. But of course, then you've still got to have some place to plug it into, and I don't know. So you can see how this was superseded by the common wall-mounted systems that we have had since then. And of course, even at this point in the early 60s, most units were wall-mounted. Floor-standing units like the Cleanmaster and the Clean-O-Matic and the All-Vac were the exception and not the rule. So Cleanmaster was based in Los Angeles, according to this, where they were in the good company of MD and Philtex and Central Vac International, and I don't remember who else. But you can see we have the controls here. We've got a transformer, we've got a relay. And so this, now that I'm thinking about it, these components would have been borrowed from your low voltage lighting control systems of the day, where you had, I think they called them touch plate, because those were all a dual coil relay, and you'd have, anytime you've been in like a 50s or 60s house and you see light switches that are kind of funny looking, not the Despard switches, but they I guess you have to know what you're looking at, but that used this. There were whole houses that were wired with relays to control the lighting. And of course today, there's not a lot of electricians that really know what they're looking at and know how to troubleshoot them. So a lot of times you'll get advised to rip it out and start from scratch. And that's kind of a shame, because when they work, they're really cool. Anyway, back to box vac. So looking down here, the hole would have been for the exhaust of a larger 7.2 inch motor. This model has the 5.7 inch motor, and obviously this motor has been replaced since that one is not from the 1960s. But they did build a version of this vacuum with the 7.2 inch 115334 motor that was like the workhorse of the industry in the 70s. And the exhaust would have pointed through that. But in this design, it's all just kind of going wherever it wants to in here. And yeah, so this would have been, I believe, one of the systems. Anytime you have a brand that's kind of retrofit centric in their sales approach, especially in these early days, there was a lot of like referral based selling, door to door, or based on leads, where like, yeah, we'll install your system, and if you give us the name of 10 of your friends that we can go harass, then you might get your system for free. And a lot of these were sold that way. So anyway, interesting look at a unique unit and sort of a window into that period of history. And now it lives next to its Boxy companion. So we have Big Blue, Beautiful, and Boxy, and Big Brown, Beautiful, and Boxy. And as always, thank you for watching. Happy vacuuming.